So we're back again, and this is episode number 2, looking at the word Muhammad or Muhammad. Is it a word? Is it a name? Is it a title? We're going to find out. And what we're going to do this episode, I've asked Mel, who's here to introduce this material. Thanks for coming again, Mel, to take us back to the Old Testament now. Let's go right back to the time of David and the time of Song of Solomon. So we're talking about 1000 BC. And let's see if we can find this name or this word, this reference that early. Over to you, Mel.
Okay, Jay. So when we look into the Old Testament, we actually do find forms of the word Muhammad in the Old Testament. But I'm sorry to disappoint viewers, it's not going to be a prophecy about Muhammad. There's a much more mundane explanation for the meaning of the word. So I'm just going to share my slides with you here. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the evolution of Muhammad, and Hamad is the Hebrew root of Mahmed. It means desired. So the HMD, as it were, is a triconsonantal symmetric root of the name Muhammad. The basic meaning of it is to praise in Arabic and to desire in Hebrew. So here are two examples. You have Psalm 68:16, and our translation is, which God has desired for his abode, and Proverbs 12:12, the wicked man desires the booty. You can see there that Hamad is not a reference to an Arabian prophet. It actually just means desire or desired, past tense. So I'm sorry to disappoint Muslims. It's not a prophecy of Muhammad there. It's just, it has a very basic meaning there in that one. Hamad means desired. Now, if we look at it in terms of Song of Songs, you also see a different form of it, Mahmadim, and in the context we can see there that it means lovely. Okay, so you can see there it's the same word, different form, and it has a similar meaning. Again, it's not referring to the Arabian prophet, but Christians have interpreted in reference to Jesus, the Messiah, because, you know, from a Christian point of view, the Old Testament is all about Jesus. It's all pointing to the future, to the eventual arrival of the Messiah. That's what it's all about. Sorry, yeah.
For those of you who see this Song of Solomon 5:16, and you've been engaging with Muslims over the years, you'll recognize what's going on here. And this is fascinating because Muslims, in their Quran, they have chapter 7, verse 157, and also chapter 61, which says very clearly that they can find the prophet who can either read or write in the earlier scriptures. And Muslims have been looking for centuries to find the reference to Muhammad, their Muhammad, their prophet, and they've come up with Deuteronomy 18:18 as one of their favorites. John chapter 14, John chapter 16 is another one of their favorites. But another favorite is this one right here, Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16. How many of you remember they said, see, this is Muhammad, this is the man Muhammad, this is our prophet. It's right here in Psalm chapter 5, verse 16, without realizing the name Muhammad, the Muhammadin, is the lovely one. That is true. But who is the lovely one? I have for many years, Mel, have always thought that this was Solomon. This is referring to him. But you're saying also that this is actually referring to Jesus. You're going to explain that later on. But Professor Robert Kerr out of Belgium, who is the head of the INADA group, has zeroed in on this and say, yes, this is the same root, the same 4 letters that are found in the name Muhammad today in Arabic. Remember, Arabic and Hebrew come from the same root. They always are consonantal. They do not have vowelization, and that's why you can put the vowels where you want to, both in Hebrew and in Arabic. But in this case, this is true. This is Muhammad, but it's nothing to do with the Muhammad of Islam, nothing to do with the future prophet who is yet to come in the 7th century AD. This is referring to either the King Solomon himself or to Jesus Christ. Fascinating. But can you see now, while we can use this to our advantage when it's brought up in discussion?
Yeah, I suppose there's something to say about it with when interpreting scripture in general. There's a literal historical meaning, like a contemporary meaning, like it could be about Solomon. But there's also the spiritual meaning. And for Christians, the spiritual meaning is it's talking about the future Messiah, Jesus. The whole of the Old Testament is all about Jesus in different ways. There's various theophanies, which is like prefigurements of Jesus. So this is no exception. Now, if we look at other variations of the form, you can see that it's used in lots of different ways to mean desire, delight, nice, cute, lovely, etc. You can see that it's very popular in Hebrew. And also in Arabic, you see the same echoing of that meaning. So Hamid is a song or poem in praise of Allah. Mahmed means desire, desirable thing. And Mahmud, desirable, precious thing. So you can see that there is a strong correlation between the Hebrew and the Arabic there. This is not just a coincidence. Now, in terms of what it means for Christians, I've taken one example, and I'm sure I could have picked any number of Christian writers down through the centuries, but St. Ambrose, writing in 387 AD, interprets Song of Songs as being about Jesus and his church, which is no surprise. Now, in the beginning of Song of Songs, it refers to Jesus, so he's the he. I come into my garden, my sister, my bride, I've gathered my myrrh and with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb and my honey, I've drunk my wine and my milk. So here's Jesus, as it were, addressing his bride, which is the church. This is not unknown terminology or analogy. I'm sure most Christians are familiar with that. Now, when we go to verse 16, it's now referring back to Jesus. So it's like the church is responding to Jesus and saying, his mouth is sweetness itself. He's altogether lovely. This is my beloved. This is my friend, daughters of Jerusalem. So that's how the church interpreted that. So Mahmedim, for Christians, right up to the 7th century, when they saw it in the Bible, they would have interpreted to refer to Jesus. They would have been scratching their heads if someone said, oh, it's to do with an Arabian prophet. They would have said, don't be ridiculous. This is actually to do with Jesus. That's how they would have interpreted, and they would have interpreted that way for literally 700 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, so that's it really. So what is Mahmedim then? It's a reference to Jesus. It's Jesus being referred to as the Messiah. Now, there's a pushback that some people might give that I should refer to, which is Mahmedim here is considered plural. Okay, but I've looked into that, and in Hebrew, sometimes they have a thing called a poetic intensification. So they use a plural to kind of to poetically say, you know, altogether lovely. It's not just lovely, but he's altogether lovely. So I think that responds to the question. It doesn't apply to Jesus because it's plural. Well, no, it's a poetic method that is used in Hebrew. I'm sure there will be some pushback against that, but I've inquired into this with people who speak Hebrew. At least in terms of the biblical Hebrew we're referring to, that seems to be how that pluralization is used. So I'll pass it back to you, Jay.
Well, this is good. This is excellent. So already we're seeing now that this word Mahmed or Muhammad or however you want to pronounce it, Mahmet, this is very early. We're talking about 1000 BC. Here it is in Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16. And then in the 4th century AD, St. Ambrose actually takes it and uses it to apply this verse to apply to Jesus himself, which is what the church did and continued to use. It was always referring to Jesus up until the 7th century, proving our point that this is well known within the church. It's also well known within Judaism because they would have, and the Jews even today would look at Song of Solomon 5:16 and say that this is referring to Solomon himself, King Solomon himself, not to anybody else. Great stuff. Interesting stuff. Now, the next one, you're going to be moving into some research that's been done by Dr. Oleg, that looks and unpacks this word and looks and sees where its root is. Great stuff. That'll be the next episode coming up. Am I correct?
It is indeed, yeah. So what we're going to find is the word has been used even earlier than the time of the Bible. So we're actually going even further back in time, and it has a more common meaning prior to that. So again, nothing to do with Muhammad of the Islamic narrative.
Perfect stuff. Thank you so much, Mel. Until next time, this is Mel and me. Over and out.